I was halfway through my morning coffee when the sharp roar of a chainsaw jolted me awake. It wasn't the faint, comforting buzz of a neighbor trimming logs. It was loud, close, the kind of sound that twists your gut before your mind even registers why. My instincts were spot on. I leapt from my porch chair and bolted toward the noise. There she was, Lisa, my new neighbor, decked out in a blinding yellow windbreaker, oversized sunglasses perched on her head, wielding a chainsaw with the reckless swagger of a rookie who thought they were a pro. She stood at the base of a massive oak tree straddling our property line, clutching the tool like it was a prop in a bad action movie. "I've got this," she yelled over the racket, as if I'd asked for a pep talk. I hadn't. "Lisa, what in God's name are you doing?" I shouted, sliding to a stop a few feet from her. She flashed a grin, flipping her sunglasses up like she was about to drop some profound wisdom. "This tree's a danger. It's leaning," she declared. "It wasn't. And it's on my property," she added. "It wasn't that either." Before I could argue, she gunned the chainsaw and slashed at the trunk. A loud, splintering crack ripped through the air, and my stomach sank. "Lisa, stop. That tree's going to fall wrong." She brushed me off with a wave, oozing the kind of arrogance that ignores every warning sign. "Chill out. I watched a video." I didn't know what video she'd seen, but it clearly skipped the part where gravity doesn't bow to YouTube bravado. Then it happened. The tree groaned, tilted, and not in the neat little direction she'd probably pictured. Instead, the huge oak twisted, its weight shifting wildly. I'd watched enough trees fall to know this was past saving. "Lisa, run," I barked. She gasped, finally clocking that she'd lost control, dropped the chainsaw, and sprinted off, arms flapping like a cartoon on the run. Too late. With a ground-shaking thud, the tree crashed, not into her yard, not into the open field, but right onto my barn. Wood splintered, the roof buckled like a crushed can, and a frantic chorus of moos and whinnies erupted from inside. Dust exploded into the air, stinging my eyes as I coughed and staggered forward, heart pounding. My barn. My damn barn. Lisa, catching her breath, dusted off her garish windbreaker and shot me a sheepish glance. "Wow, that, came down quick." I turned to her, fury and disbelief slugging it out inside me. I clenched my fists to keep from grabbing a pitchfork. "You think?" She sighed, all theatrical, and said, "Well, you should have warned me better." I nearly choked. "Warned you? I was screaming at you to stop." She folded her arms, like this was a petty spat and not a disaster. "Technically, that tree was kinda on my side." I pointed at the wreckage. "Technically, that's my barn under your kinda tree." She pursed her lips, eyeing the mess like she'd just noticed it. "Huh. Yeah, I get your point." A loud bang echoed from the barn, followed by a distressed moo. My gut twisted. I raced to the doors, yanking them open with everything I had. Inside, my cows and horses were in chaos, eyes wild, hooves stomping, snorts filling the air. Some stalls were smashed, but by some miracle, no animals seemed badly hurt, just rattled. Lisa peeked in behind me. "Oh, they're fine, just spooked." I turned, sucking in a sharp breath through my nose. "Get off my land." She laughed, like I was kidding. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, it's just a barn. You can rebuild." I stepped toward her, and for the first time, she seemed to sense she'd crossed a line. "I'm calling the sheriff," I said, pulling out my phone. Her face twisted. "Wait, what?" "No, that's overkill. It was an accident. You can't sue over an accident." I hit call. "Watch me." 15 minutes later, Sheriff Harper rolled up in his weather patrol truck, stepping out with the weary gait of a man who'd refereed too many neighbor feuds. His gaze swept from me, steaming, to Lisa, now sporting a wounded puppy look. "What's the story here?" he asked, sizing up the chaos. I opened my mouth, but Lisa jumped in. "Mike threatened me," she blurted. My jaw dropped. "What?" She clutched her chest, eyes wide with fake innocence. "He charged at me, yelling stop in this super aggressive way. I felt so unsafe." Sheriff Harper gave her a long, exhausted stare. "And what were you doing when he yelled stop?" She faltered. Cutting the tree." "And then what?" he pressed. She pointed at the barn. "Well, it kinda landed there." The sheriff rubbed his temples. "Lisa, you cut down a tree without permission on a property line and trashed a man's barn." She huffed. "You're making it sound worse than it is." It's exactly as bad as it sounds, I snapped. Harper sighed and turned to me. You got insurance? I gritted my teeth. Not for neighbor-wrecked barns. Lisa perked up. Oh, but that should be a thing, just in case someone else does this. The sheer absurdity nearly fried my brain. Sheriff, she's paying for this, I said, voice tight. Lisa gasped like I'd asked her to hand over her soul. Pay? Oh, no. No, this was an act of nature. Harper's eyes narrowed. Nature didn't swing that chainsaw. She threw up her hands. Well, what am I supposed to do? I can't afford it. Cold realization sank in. Lisa wasn't just careless. She was a walking calamity. And if I didn't act, she'd keep ruining my life. I met her gaze. Get ready, because I'm taking this to court. Her mouth flapped like a stranded fish. Wait, let's be reasonable. I turned and walked off before I did something stupid. Behind me, she huffed. You're overreacting. It's just a barn. I didn't stop. My barn was gone. My animals were shaken, and a fight loomed ahead. Lisa had no clue who she'd tangled with. The next morning, I dragged myself out of bed, still seething. My barn, my livestock, my sanity, all wrecked because Lisa fancied herself a lumberjack. The only thing keeping me sane was that I'd started legal action. But until that panned out, I had a ruined barn to tackle. I grabbed my gloves and headed out. The air stank of broken wood and dust. The oak sprawled across what used to be a solid building, now a tangle of beams and hay. The animals were safe in a makeshift pen, but it wouldn't hold long. I had work to do. Climbing onto the wreckage, I started figuring out where to begin. Then I spotted something odd, a metal edge poking out under a collapsed wall. At first, I thought it was a toolbox, but as I cleared debris, I saw it was bigger, an old, rusted chest buried between broken beams. It looked ancient, coated in grime. Curiosity took over. I hauled it out and set it on firm ground. The lid was locked, with a small keyhole. My grandfather used to spin yarns about hidden treasures on the ranch, lost secrets, buried loot. I'd always figured they were just stories. Now, I wasn't so sure. I didn't have a key, but no way was I stopping. I fetched a crowbar from the shed and jammed it under the lid. With a grunt, I pried it open, the lock snapping clean. Inside were stacks of yellowed papers, old documents. Underneath, a small, carved wooden box. My pulse quickened as I lifted it, flipping the lid. A single antique key sat on a faded scrap of parchment. I unfolded it, scanning the elegant script. It was from my great-grandfather, hinting at something valuable stashed deep on the land, locked away for generations. I stared at the key, mind racing. If this was real, it could change everything. A loud, fake gasp spun me around. Lisa stood there in a neon tracksuit, coffee cup in hand, like she'd just strolled over. Well, she said, sipping slowly. Looks like someone found something juicy. I clenched my jaw. Lisa, why are you here? She shrugged, edging closer. Just checking the damage, making sure you're not exaggerating for your lawsuit. Her eyes flicked to the chest. But this? This is interesting. I stepped in front, blocking her. None of your business. She flashed that fake smile I'd come to dread. Oh, come on. If it was in the barn, maybe it's meant for whoever owns the land now. And with our little property spat, maybe we should— No, I cut her off. Her face flickered with something dark before the smile returned. Fine, be that way. But if I were you, I'd watch out. Old secrets can bite. I didn't care what she meant. She'd done enough. I grabbed the chest and headed for the house. She huffed, but didn't follow, for now. Inside, I locked the door and spread the contents on the kitchen table. The key stared back at me. Treasure? Deeds? Whatever it was, my ancestors had guarded it. I dug through the papers, piecing together clues. Hours later, I found it, a hand-drawn map of the ranch. My eyes traced familiar landmarks to a small X near an old, forgotten well I'd ignored for years. That had to be it. Excitement surged, but I couldn't rush. If Lisa suspected anything, she'd be all over it. I had to play smart. That night, I barely slept, plotting my move. I needed to reach that well before she did. At dawn, I grabbed my tools and headed out. The crisp air should have been calming, but I half expected Lisa to leap out of the bushes. The well stood neglected, vines choking it. I cleared them away and spotted a rusted metal hatch at the base. My heart thumped as the key clicked in the lock. The door creaked open, revealing a small chest. Hands shaking, I pulled it out and set it down. Before I could open it, a twig snapped. I turned, Lisa, shovel in hand, feigning surprise. Wow, what are the odds we'd both be here? Lisa, get off my land. She ignored me, eyeing the chest. That looks important. I'd had it. You've got 5 seconds to leave. She tilted her head, expression cold. Sure you want to play tough, Mike? What if I tell the sheriff you threatened me again? She smirked. You wouldn't like that, would you? I exhaled, gripping the chest. I've got work to do. She stared, then sighed dramatically. Fine, but I'll be back. This land might not be as yours as you think. I waited till she left, then opened the chest. Inside, silver coins, old enough to be worth a mint, a stack of documents, and a sealed letter addressed to me. I unfolded it. My great-grandfather's words hit hard. If you're reading this, it's yours to find. This land is more than dirt. It's history, wealth, danger. Guard it. Beware those who'd steal it. I gripped the paper. My family hadn't just left me a ranch, they'd left a legacy. And Lisa? She'd started a war she couldn't win. By the well, I stared at the chest's contents. The coins, the papers, the letter, it was bigger than inheritance. It was about the land, its past, and the fight ahead. Lisa wouldn't quit, but neither would I. I locked the chest and headed home, watching for her. Inside, I spread the documents out. Some were deeds, maps, ownership records from over a century ago. One caught my eye, my great-grandfather's name, detailing land splits. Tracing the lines, I froze. Lisa's property wasn't hers. An old deal had never been legally updated. Her land, including where she'd felled the tree, was mine. She'd been trespassing all along. If this held up, she'd pay for the barn and lose her claim. I grinned, imagining her face. A loud knock jolted me. I opened the door. Lisa, arms crossed, smug as ever. I've got a proposition, she announced. I leaned on the frame. Not interested. She scoffed. You haven't heard it. Don't need to. I know how your ideas end. She sighed. Look, let's be adults. I want to buy some of your land. I blinked, wondering if she'd lost it completely. You want to what? She nodded. There's confusion over property lines. Skip the legal mess. I'll buy the tree area, and we're square. I laughed, deep and loud. She bristled. What's so funny? Lisa, I just found proof that land's not even yours. Her face twitched. I grabbed the document and held it up. Great-grandfather left this. Says otherwise. She squinted. Where'd you get that? Family gift, I smirked. He knew someone like you'd show up. She floundered, then went for victim mode. This is unfair. You're using some old paper to steal what's mine. It was never yours, I said, leaning in. She groaned. Fine, I'll fight dirty too. I've got a lawyer. Good. Mine's already on the lawsuit. Her eyes widened. You're serious? Dead serious. Start packing. She stared, then stormed off, muttering about conspiracies. I watched her go, tension easing. It wasn't done, but victory was close. Weeks later, the court ruled for me. The documents held. Lisa's land was mine. She could buy it at market price or leave. She left. The day she moved out was pure satisfaction. She ranted about small-town plots, but no one cared. Sheriff Harper, fed up with her, practically grinned as she drove off. Peace returned. I fixed the barn, settled the animals, and breathed easy, knowing Lisa's chaos was gone. But the real win? The treasure wasn't just coins. It was history, proof this land was my family's. Standing on my porch, gazing at the ranch I'd fought for, I knew it'd always be mine.